Shana Tova, Gamar, Chatima Tova to you all. Thank you so much for joining us, all of you who are here in our sanctuary, and thank you to those who are joining us online from all over the world. We're grateful that you're choosing to spend part of this most holy day with us. One of my very favorite stories that helps set the tone for this whole time of the year, this whole season, but especially for this moment, is taught in the name of Rabbi Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev. And he tells a story that one day right before Yom Kippur, he was in his study, he was preparing for the services, and he heard through the window the call of an itinerant handyman who was yelling out, "Does anyone have anything that needs fixing? Does anyone have anything that needs repair?" And at that moment, Levi Yitzchak of Berdichev, he fell to his knees and he said, "Woeful is me and woeful is my soul. I'm in need of fixing. I'm broken. I need repair. And the day of atonement is upon us." We all are in need of repair. Our world is in need of repair. Our communities are in need of repair. And one small thing that each and every one of us can do, and if we do it together, it won't be a small thing at all, is to spend time today focusing on how we can be better, focusing on how we have fallen short, thinking about the aspects of our own character, the aspects of our own souls that need tikkun, that need fixing, and then committing to make changes and then doing the work. And if we all do that, our world will be a better place, and we will be better people, and our communities will be stronger, and we can go forward into 5782 with hope. May this be our will, and may this be acceptable to God. We continue our service on page 232 with Baruch Hu, our call to worship. I'll invite you, as you are able, to please rise.
On page 234. Beloved, you are good, and you wield goodness in shaping creation, and every single day in your goodness and with your goodness, you make us new with all created things. You make me new. I cling to yesterday. Who would I be without the sorrows that have worn grooves into my back? But that's my own smallness. You've made me new, formed me for this new day, a sapling unbound. The knot in my stomach, the knot in my throat, you untie them. Can I sit with you for even a few minutes before I tangle myself again? We continue with our Shema on page 238.
Shema.
Please be seated. Will you open your soul to me? Will you speak your mind? Can you love me? Will you take my words? Take them with you, teach them in sunshine, teach them in kitchens. Make these words psalms, make them stories and philosophy. Repeat them until they are music. Wrap yourselves inside the sounds. Write these words and keep the writings close at hand, or better yet, know them by heart. To gaze upon them with mind's eye, to carry them wherever you go, as your prayer at night and most important word you can speak in the morning. And when you're not sure you can love me, Remember Mitzrayim, the narrow place, Egypt. Remember everything still depends on our love. Page 242.
Page 243. Ezrat Sarah. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, בחיי הכל אתה רב להושיע. בכל כן חיים וחסד, בחיי הכל ברחמים רבים. סומך נופים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים. ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומגדול אליו. מלך לוי ומחייב ומצליח ישועה. מי הרחמים, זוכר יצורה וחיים ורחמים. ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, ברוך שמו, מחיי
Please be seated. Continue on page 246 responsively. This is the sobering truth which both frightens and consoles us.
Right good deeds in life's great book, and to each you have given the power to write lines that will never be lost.
No song is so trivial, no story is so commonplace, no deed is so insignificant that you do not record it.
No kindness is ever done in vain. Each harmful act leaves its imprint. All our deeds, the good and the bad, are noted and remembered by you.
So help us to remember always that what we do will live forever, that the echoes of the words we speak will resound until the end of time.
May our lives reflect this awareness. May our deeds bring no shame or reproach. May the entries we make in the book of remembrance be ever acceptable to you.
Let Ur
The Unatana Tokef prayer reminds us that the severity of the decree can be tempered through acts of teshuvah, through our sincere prayer, and through tzedakah. It's an honor to invite the president of our congregation, Steve Braham, to come forward and introduce our annual Yom Kippur appeal. Steve, on behalf of the congregation, we're grateful to you and all of our lay leaders for all of your work for us, for our community. Thank you for being with us today, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Steve Braham. I'm the new temple president. It's nice to see everybody here, and hello to those of you watching from home. I'm excited to be your president. I was bar mitzvahed here over 50 years ago, and I'm now able to give back after 50 years of enjoying the temple. Yoshi, thanks to you and your clergy and administrative team for organizing these services and for being flexible to pivot on the kind of worship experience that everybody wants so they can feel COVID comfortable, whatever their level of comfort is, including this amazing professional production that those of you at home have been able to watch. It's incredible that 1,600 families were watching this program last night from home, and I'm sure it'll be even more today. Our synagogue has continued to grow in these tough times, and thank you for those of you who are at home for being a part of this. As the new year begins, we're hoping that we can soon feel some normalcy in the coming year for our temple life. We're hoping that many of you will be able to enjoy the existing programs we've had over the many years and the new programs we hope to offer soon. Let me now take this opportunity to introduce Roya. Malamed, Roya, where are you? Roya is an important member of our board of directors, and she's going to speak to us about what Stephen Weiss means to her and how we can help. Thank you. Roya.
Standing here in this spot, a cascade of memories. It's not just a faint shadow from years past. I realize it's a feeling deep in my core and down to my bones that is stronger and more present than ever. That feeling didn't just disappear because we haven't been in this room for over a year and a half due to the pandemic. It didn't go away a few years ago when my long drives up the mountain were no longer a daily occurrence because my kids graduated from the preschool. And it certainly didn't go away years before that when I moved from my childhood home on Casiano, just up the street, even though parking for high holidays became so much harder. So what is that feeling that will never leave me? It's my wise tradition. Years of being in this sanctuary for all the Jewish holidays and Shabbat, years of standing on this bima, singing Ve'al Kulam with our cantor, years of hearing our voices pray together, finding strength in difficult times, joy in good times, always collectively hoping for a better year ahead. I remember sitting there, looking out that westward-facing window, watching the sun set and the magical colors in the sky. All those times I stood arm in arm with my parents and siblings, and then with my husband, kids, niece, and nephew. Years of my stomach growling at Ne'ilah after a day of fasting. Even with an empty stomach, the energy of everyone around me fills my heart. Then finally, as the day ends, hearing Adonai Hu HaElohim, the gravity and the sanctity of those last moments of Yom Kippur, those moments and so many more have become my wise tradition. My family story started about 40 years ago when my parents, Gila and Kamran Hekmat, were looking for a synagogue where they could attend high holiday services alongside their one-year-old daughter. That was the first Yom Kippur in this very place. Listening to Rabbi Zeldin give his sermon and hoping I wouldn't make a peep. As our family grew from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 children, Wise became part of our very fabric. Throughout my youth, every moment at Wise brought our family together with meaning and purpose. From baby namings to bar and bat mitzvahs to weddings, we celebrated our lives at Wise. This temple and all of its clergy welcomed my parents with open arms. And my parents returned the favor by sharing their lives as members of this community, all the while professing their gratitude. Each year, they became more deeply connected. They sat on the temple board and volunteered in the schools and invested in a place that was central to our family's life. It was our Wise tradition. As I became an adult, got married, and had 3 children of my own, the depth of my connection to Wise increased. Wise gave my husband and me a framework to create our own story. Our chapter started at the preschool, where we built a community of good friends and forged our own relationships with new clergy who not only inspired our spirituality, but also stood side by side with us as parents. We faced the crazy world of parenting together. Every year we sat in this synagogue alongside our children for high holiday services, just as I had done with my parents. However, these services were led by our teachers and our friends. And it just made the tradition even deeper and more meaningful. Now it was my own family's Wise tradition. This year may feel a little different because my family will not be in the sanctuary, but a tradition built on 40 years of experiences, of memories, of enrichment, of meaning, of spirituality can't be undone. The decision my parents made all those years ago has left a deep imprint on my heart and has made me evolve and grow. My Wise tradition is stronger than ever. On the plaza of Katz Pavilion, my parents, my in-laws, my siblings, our spouses, and our children can stand arm in arm, safely masked and tested, of course, just as the sun goes down. It's not this sanctuary, but it is sacred ground. A place that has transformed my family in ways my parents never imagined. I am so grateful that Wise Temple makes this all possible. And I know that it is my responsibility to keep the wonderful community strong for the next generation. And I hope you feel the same. Please consider making a meaningful donation to our temple's annual campaign.
Thank you so much, Roya, for your beautiful words. There are envelopes on your seats, and you are, of course, able to make a meaningful donation at any time that makes all of this possible. We continue with a special prayer for holiness on page 252.
שמי מרום, ככתוב היה נביאך, וקרא סזת ויאמר, קדוש, 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 אדוני צבאות, ברוב כל
You may be seated. Page 253. 254. You commanded me to love you with all my heart, with all of my soul, and with all of my might. Why, therefore, should I be afraid? We fear that we are not the people we are meant to be. We fear the passing of time. There is so much we wish to accomplish, that the hour is growing late. You redeemed us at the shores of the sea all those years ago. Why, therefore, do we ask once again for your redemption? You ordained that on the 10th day of the 7th month we should practice self-affliction and atone for our many trespasses. Each year now we vow to be better, and each year we return to you again, brokenhearted and ashamed. Why, therefore, should we once again dare to hope that this year will be different? Forbid me to despair, as long as we draw breath, we continue to hope for the day that corruption and evil shall give way to pure goodness. As long as we live, we will forego our future for ourselves and our children. Page 263. What will it sound like? Utter silence or the clash of swords becoming plowshares? What will it look like? A clear, blue, sunny day or the smoky aftermath of something big? What will it taste like? The sweetness of a summer fruit or the bitter taste of loss and grief? What will it smell like? A fresh ocean breeze or charred wood and ashes? What will it feel like? Safe and secure, swaddled in the arms of someone you love, or cold and alone, unsure of what's next. But until we know it, until we hear it, see it, taste it, smell it, feel it, we must speak it, loud and clear, raging and insistent, a prayer, a hope, a vision. Peace.
Sim shalom, tova v'racha ba'olam, chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu, ve'yarmo Yisrael amecha. עושה השלום.
Mom, I asked from the back seat of our Jeep Wagoneer, the one with the wood panels on the side, why is the temple giving away Russian jewelry? There was an uncharacteristically long pause, and then she said, "What on earth are you talking about?" I saw a sign in the temple parking lot that said, "Free Soviet jewelry." And then the rabbi was talking about giving us some special bracelets to wear. She laughed and said, "You didn't read the sign carefully enough. It says, Free Soviet jewelry." The year was 1979. My mom explained to me that there were Jews in Russia who had been put in prison simply because they wanted to make aliyah, to immigrate to Israel. They were called refuseniks because the Soviets had refused to let them go. Synagogues, JCCs, Jewish federations, and other Jewish agencies around the world had come together to raise awareness about the situation and to encourage the President of the United States and members of Congress to put pressure on the Soviet government to release them so they could immigrate to Israel and live their lives freely as Jews. It was the first time that I remember being introduced to the concept of peoplehood. My synagogue community in Omaha, Nebraska, together with temples all over the world, cared deeply about the plight of total strangers languishing in Soviet prisons halfway around the globe. Because they were Jews, part of Am Yisrael, part of our mishpucha, we had a special obligation to fight for their release. A few weeks later, at religious school, I got my Soviet jewelry, a little silver bracelet with the name of a refusenik on it, along with the date of his arrest. Mine said, Anatoly Sharansky, March 15th, 1977. Sharansky would spend 9 years in the Gulag, being moved from prison to prison. He endured 405 days in the punishment cell, a sensory deprivation chamber with no light, no furniture, nothing to read, no one to talk to, and barely anything to eat. And during all those years, what kept Sharansky going more than anything else, except perhaps the support of his wife Avital, was the knowledge that his people were with him. When he was finally freed, Anatoly became Natan. And Natan Sharansky became an Israeli politician, author, and human rights advocate. And most recently, he served as chairman of the Jewish Agency, an organization devoted to Jewish peoplehood. In his recent memoir, Never Alone, Prison, Politics, and My People, Sharansky describes a remarkable encounter with Nelson Mandela, the South African anti-apartheid activist and Nobel Peace Prize winner. They met here in Los Angeles shortly after Mandela was freed from 27 years of imprisonment on Robben Island. Mandela told Sharansky that he had just read his book, Fear No Evil, which told the story of his struggles against the Soviet system. And then Mandela said to Sharansky, "Boy, you suffered." And Sharansky replied, "You suffered 3 times worse. I was in jail for 9 years. You were there for 27. And Mandela said, "But my people were with me. You were alone." Now, what Mandela meant was that while Sharansky was often in solitary confinement, not allowed to communicate with his wife or family, Mandela met regularly with his comrades. They ran their revolutionary struggle from adjacent cells, setting strategy and making tactical decisions together. Sharansky, on the other hand, to keep from going mad, played chess in his head. But Sharansky didn't see it that way at all, because he knew that there was a sovereign nation with diplomats and an army fighting on his behalf. And this reality, this precious truth, is at the heart of what Zionism is all about. As Sharansky puts it, Zionism means that a country thousands of miles away, which most Soviet Jews had never visited, would never stop fighting for us. Israel made that far-fetched idea appear normal. Sharansky knew all about what had happened at Entebbe, where 100 Israeli commandos flew 2,500 miles to rescue 94 Jewish passengers and 12 Air France crew members from PLO hijackers. This event especially was seared into Sharansky's consciousness. When he was in the Gulag, he writes that whenever he heard a plane flying overhead, his pulse quickened, reminding me that Israel and the Jewish people would never, ever abandon me or us. And through those more than 400 days of solitary confinement, more than 9 years in prison, his people were with him. Am Yisrael, the Jewish people, rabbis and human rights advocates, tourists who would smuggle prayer books into the USSR along with messages for the refuseniks, as well as a 9-year-old boy in the Midwest with his little silver bracelet. We were all there with him. But, and this hurts my heart to say it, I'm not sure if we would be there for him today. This past June, Sharansky published an article with historian Gil Troy describing a changing attitude towards Jewish peoplehood and Zionism. Do we still, they ask, believe that no matter what, Am Yisrael will stick together, never ever abandoning one another? It seems not, they suggest, reflecting on the language that some American Jews used in response to the most recent violence between Israel and the Hamas terrorist regime. Language like describing Zionism as a diverse set of linked ethno-nationalist ideologies shaped by settler colonial paradigms that assumed a hierarchy of civilizations and contributed to unjust, enduring, and unsustainable systems of Jewish supremacy. Language like the Sunni Jewish Law Students Association issuing a statement demanding a Palestinian right to return a free and just Palestine from the river to the sea and an end to the ongoing Nakba. This statement, which one might expect to hear from a Hamas spokesperson, essentially calls for the end of the Jewish state. Language like that found in a recently published letter authored by over 90 rabbinical students from a variety of seminaries in the United States that uses the word apartheid to describe Israel's actions in the West Bank. Now, this is not an entirely new phenomenon. There have been Jewish anti-Zionists since before the term Zionism was even coined in the 19th century. That is to say, Jews who would like to imagine Judaism as purely a religion, disentangled from what it means to be part of a tribe or a people, divorced from the messy responsibilities that come with wielding power and political sovereignty. And to be sure, the vast majority of American Jews continue to identify as Zionists, supporters of a Jewish homeland in Eretz Yisrael, a place of refuge and a cultural center for a people that has been forcibly dispersed time and time again through the millennia. But a frightening and growing number of our fellow Jews identify today as anti-Zionists, characterized by Sharansky and Troy as those Jews whose public and communal staging of their anti-Israeli and anti-Zionist beliefs appears to be the badge of a superior form of Judaism, stripped of its unsavory and unethical, ethnocentric, and colonialist baggage. Now, Sharansky and Troy are not in any way suggesting that it is illegitimate for Jews to criticize Israel or its policies. But there is a great divide between criticism of a governmental or military action and the claim that Israel itself no longer has the right to exist. What is most concerning about anti-Zionist Jews is their rejection of peoplehood and their lack of support and even shame that they feel regarding Israel. Many of us have encountered anti-Zionist Jews. Some of them are our children, our grandchildren, our students, our co-workers or friends. 2 years ago, I spoke from this bima about how we must respond to anti-Semitism. This work continues to be vital, and if history serves as a predictor for what will unfold going forward, it sadly is work that we will need to engage in for a long time. But one could argue that anti-Zionist Jews pose almost as significant a threat to Jewish continuity and survival. Because without a sense of unified purpose and a shared understanding of why a sovereign Jewish state that can wield both political and military power is an existential necessity, how can we hope to survive as a people? And more individually, how will, God forbid, future Natan Sharansky's and even Jews like us in relative security in places like Los Angeles, in the face of growing hostility toward our community, make it through those dark nights without a sense that there is a people worried for us and working actively for our well-being? How will we maintain the faith that no matter what, as Jews, we are never alone, because we're part of a people that will always care for us, that will always fight for us, and advocate for us? How will we maintain the hope, the tikvah, that somehow, some way, no matter how dark and long the night, day will come and we will endure and even thrive? If we truly care about our people, if we truly care about Israel, then we must renew and strengthen our commitment to learning more, to supporting more, and to loving more. For millennia, our Jewish superpower has been learning. Whatever the challenge, whatever the disruption, we studied. Now, admittedly, it was usually Torah that we were studying, but it's a strategy that has served us extremely well. And what needs to be studied now and taught, in addition, of course, to Torah, is the history of the Zionist movement and what led to the creation of the State of Israel. Because without context, without an appreciation of the incredibly painful reasons that a Jewish state is necessary, some folks conclude that mixing religion with politics is just a bad idea, and that therefore the whole concept of a Jewish state is problematic. Those who label Israel a colonial enterprise often haven't a clue that there has been continual Jewish settlement of the land of Israel for more than 3,000 years, with copious literary and archaeological evidence as proof. Yes, many Jews from Europe, North Africa, and the Middle East have immigrated to Israel from the 19th century to the present day, but they were quite literally returning home, and often as refugees. Those who describe Israel's occupation of the West Bank as a type of apartheid need to learn more both about the history of South Africa as well as the history of Israel to realize that the label is slanderous and insulting to both South Africans who suffered under the apartheid regime as well as to Israelis. The occupation is a lot of things. It's messy, it's complicated, and frequently unjust. And I'm amongst the many Zionist Jews who long for the day when a peaceful Palestinian state can stand alongside Israel. But to label the occupation apartheid is a form of demonization that crosses over to anti-Semitism. Alongside whatever journals and newspapers you read in order to be an informed citizen of this country, as a Jew, you should be reading Israeli press as well. And there are so many excellent choices available in English, including Haaretz, the Times of Israel, Ynet News, and the Jerusalem Post. And these days, it's never easier to learn about Israel through music, television, and cinema. There are so many options that will not just entertain, but truly open a window into some of the issues that Israelis are grappling with right now. The best way, of course, to learn about Israel is to visit and see it for yourself. And Cantor Emma and I and our families are leading a trip this March and April, and even if you've been before, we can guarantee new experiences for you. It'll be a great opportunity to connect with members of your people, both near and far. Another way we can respond is by redoubling our support for Israel and more broadly for Am Yisrael, for the Jewish people. And there are so many diverse ways to do this. Just as there is not just one way to be Jewish, there's not one way to be a Zionist. And this has always been the case, by the way. The early Zionist thinkers, Achad Ha'am and Theodor Herzl, were ideological foes. David Ben-Gurion, who would become Israel's first prime minister, and Ze'ev Jabotinsky, the leader of a rival Zionist party, were so at odds with one another that in the early 1930s, they gathered in London for a month of mediation to try to bring about some sort of reconciliation. Golda Meir was a fierce critic of Menachem Begin and vice versa. What all Zionists share, though, is the simple belief that we Jews constitute a people that has the right to realize its national aspirations in a particular place that we are bound to historically, the land of Israel. There are many ways to support Israel culturally, religiously, and politically. What's not an option, though, is apathy. Throwing our hands up in frustration and declaring, I'm done with Israel, or concluding that somehow Israel is done with us. You're not happy with Bibi or with Bennett? Okay. They're merely prime ministers. They no more represent what Israel is or can be than the President of the United States does for this country. You're not into politics? Okay, there are many other ways to be engaged and supportive. Nonprofits and NGOs in every imaginable social sector of every political flavor, peace work and reconciliation, Palestinian rights, protecting the environment, progressive Judaism, programs for lone soldiers who serve in the IDF without family in Israel. There is no end to the ways that we can support our people and our homeland. And perhaps equally important, we must redouble our investment in Jewish education here in our local communities so that our children and our grandchildren might become more informed and engaged Zionist Jews. And if we don't do this work, if we won't provide this support, who will? We have a special obligation to worry about our people, members of our extended Jewish family. And our liturgy on these holy days is instructive in this regard. As we cry out again and again directly to God in the second person, asking for compassion and support for your people. Ki anu amecha, we say, we are your people. Ve'ata Eloheinu, and you God, you are ours. Now, how can we ask God to provide support and help for our people if we do not? A friend recently put this to me powerfully in an email this way. During so many years when Israel only existed as an idea, our poorest ancestors put pennies they couldn't really afford to give into tzedakah boxes for the benefit of the poor, sick, and old of Jerusalem and the Holy Land. as our ancestors sacrificed on behalf of our people, for us and for the generations to come, we must do the same. But it's not just about learning and supporting, it's also about cultivating a feeling. It's about loving. And we have to work to make that connection sometimes, to strengthen that bond, that love for our people and our homeland. How deeply do you feel it? How much is your identity wrapped up in your being part of our people? Israeli philosopher Moshe Halbertal describes an important measure of this sense of connection: feeling the pain of others in your group. When we hear about a rocket attack from Gaza that injures an Israeli soldier, do our hearts ache a little bit? If a fellow Jew, albeit a total stranger, is the victim of an anti-Semitic attack in Paris or New York, does it fill us with anguish and concern or anger? When Israel is slandered in the media or on the floor of the United Nations, does it inspire in us a sense of outrage and concern that leads to action? What disturbed me most about the behavior of many anti-Zionist Jews during Israel's war with Gaza this past May was the seeming total disregard for the safety and well-being, physical, spiritual, and emotional, of their fellow Jews. Of course we should care about the people of Gaza, especially children and other innocents who have been so betrayed by their own leadership. We should care about the rights and dignity of Palestinians in the West Bank and places like Sheikh Jarrah. But first and foremost, we have an obligation to our own family and our own people who were at that very moment taking refuge in shelters as thousands of rockets rained down upon them. And this is a core Jewish value, succinctly expressed in the Talmud: Kol Yisrael arevim ze bazeh. The word arevim is so suggestive. I want to explore it with you for just a moment. It can mean that all Jews are responsible for one another. It can mean that all Jews are bound up with each other. It can mean that we must be pledges for each other. It can also mean, suggestively, that there should be an affection in our hearts for one another, a sweetness that we feel for our fellow Jews. We share a common history as well as a common destiny. The message is so clear, our lives are inextricably connected. And anti-Zionist Jews cannot escape this, even if they wanted to try. Make no mistake, for the real enemies of the Jewish people, those who in every generation seek to destroy us, there are no distinctions. A Jew is a Jew is a Jew. Some of us feel this connection in our kishkis, in our Jewish souls. We feel it from our childhood. Some of us come to this later in life, those righteous converts who have chosen to join our ranks. Adult B'nai Mitzvah students who embrace a tradition that for whatever reason was denied them. For me, the best way to inspire and cultivate this feeling is to actively choose to share our lives more fully with one another, by showing up for each other, by spending time together, by learning each other's stories, standing together for Kaddish, dancing at each other's simchas. This is how we come to love our people. And I want to very much include in this embrace Jews who are anti-Zionists, Jews who would turn their backs on Am Yisrael. We cannot give up on them, for they too are part of our mishpacha. Our job is to engage them all the more. My friends, I hope to God that none of us ever has to go through what Natan Sharansky did. I pray that we'll know safety and security here in America, throughout the diaspora, and in Israel as well, so that we can all celebrate our Judaism, our rich culture, and our national aspirations in dignity and without fear. But if we do find ourselves facing the types of challenges that so many who have come before us have faced, I hope that we would not be alone, that our people would be here with us, that our people would be staging rallies and protests, writing letters and circulating petitions, fighting for our freedom, wearing bracelets with our names on them. No matter what challenges or tragedies, triumphs or celebrations come our way, may we have the gift of knowing that we never, ever have to face them alone.
Hard to see the light now. Just don't let it go. Things will come out right now. We can make it so. Someone is on your side. No one is alone.
As we prepare to strike our chests as part of our confessional on page 271, it wouldn't be amiss to think that there's a little Jewish guilt going on here. We trespassed, we dealt treacherously, we robbed, we spoke slander, and we slam our chests with each word. But the purpose of this day is to turn, to conduct teshuvah, to become our very best selves, to transform into that which we know we can be. And guilt is not the source of transformation. Guilt chains our gaze to the past. And yes, we have to acknowledge our failures in order to learn from them. But to do better, we have to look to the future. And for that, we need love. So as we beat our chests, let us remember that we are loved and we have love to give. And let that be the strength that helps us turn on this Yom Kippur. Please rise.
Ay, 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 Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, Dibarnu Dofi. Ay, 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 Evinu,
272.
272.
Yes. We're not going backwards, we're going forwards. I'll read the first three words in Hebrew, and then you'll respond with the English with me. Al chet shechatanu, for the sin we have committed against you deliberately and by mistake, and for the sin we have committed by the words we have spoken.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, for the sin we have committed against you by hardening our hearts, and for the sin we have committed through careless speech.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, for the sin we have committed against you through
lies and deceit, and for the sin we have committed through slander.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, for the sin we have committed against you by judging others unfairly, and for the sin we have committed by disrespecting parents and teachers.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, for the sin we have committed against you through insincere apologies, and for the sin we have committed by mistreating our neighbor.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha,
For the sin we have committed against you through violence and abuse, and for the sin we have committed through dishonesty in business. For all these things, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement.
For the
sin we have committed against you openly and secretly, and for the sin we have committed by lack of self-control. Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, for the sin we have committed against you through sexual immorality, and for the sin we have committed through gluttony.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha,
For the sin we have committed against you by giving in to our hostile impulses, and for the sin we have committed by greed and exploitation.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, for the sin we have committed against you through cynicism and scorn, and for the sin we have committed by arrogant behavior.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha, for the sin we have committed against you through baseless hatred, and for the sin we have committed by offensive speech.
Al chet shechatanu lefanecha,
For the sin we have committed against you by evil speech, and for the sin we have committed by selfish and petty behavior. For all these things, God of forgiveness, forgive us, pardon us, grant us atonement.
As we prepare to open our ark doors for Avinu Malkeinu and our Torah service, we want to thank Glenn and Karen Freeman. Your family is a gift to our community. Thank you for all of the ways in which you support our wonderful community. We'll continue with Avinu Malkeinu, which can be found on page 276.
Avinu Malkeinu, Shema Kolenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, hear our voices. Avinu Malkeinu, chatanu lefanecha. Avinu Malkeinu, we sin before you.
Avinu Malkeinu, chamol aleinu va'al ol aleinu v'tapenu.
Avinu Malkeinu, have mercy upon us and upon our children.
Avinu Malkeinu, Karle Dever V'che'er V'ra'av Me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, help us to diminish pestilence, war, and famine. Avinu Malkeinu, kale kol tzar umastin me'aleinu.
Avinu Malkeinu, inspire us to banish hate and oppression from the earth. Avinu Malkeinu, kotvenu b'sefer chaim tovim.
Avinu Malkeinu, enter us in the book of life.
Avinu Malkeinu Chadesh Aleinu Shana Tova.
Avinu Malkeinu, renew our faith in the future that we may make the coming year a year of goodness.
Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu. Yeimanu Masim, Aseh Imanu. Tzedaka v'chesed, Aseh Imanu. Tzedaka v'chesed, ve'hoshienu. Aseh Imanu. Tzedaka v'chesed, Aseh Imanu. Tzedaka v'chesed, ve'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu. Avinu Malkeinu, Chaneinu Vaneinu, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad. Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh V'norah Shemo. L'Adonai iti, v'niromema Shemo yachdav.
Please be seated. We begin Seder Kriyat HaTorah. You can find the blessings before and after the Torah beginning on page 280. And then the reading is found on page 282 so that you can follow along. And those of you joining from home will have all those words up on the screen for you. We're very fortunate to have members of our congregation who will be joining us for Aliyot, both in person and online, as well as our Torah readers. Our first reader today is Alex Ramin, a graduate of our schools. Please come forward, Alex. And for the honor of our first Aliyah, joining us online are Penny and Mark Burns, and joining us here in person are Farnaz and Robert Neiman, and Michael Neiman. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vahed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Amen. Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem lifnei Adonai Elohechem. Roshechem shiftechem tichnechem v'shohot terechem kol ish Yisrael tapechem nishechem v'gehera asher b'kerev machanecha machatovetzecha ad shoev meimecha.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Thank you, Yasher Koach. Beautifully done. We're going to invite for our second reader, Brandon Melamed, to come forward. And for the honor of the Aliyah, joining us online are Wendy and Ken Ruby. And joining us here are Wendy and Barry Levin and their children, Brandon and Brooke. Please come forward. And the verses that Alex just chanted are the verses that bring the Jewish people together in such a powerful way. Atem nitzavim hayom kulchem. All of us are standing together. And then the Torah goes on to tell us, from your leaders to the people who carry the water and the people who chop the wood, everybody is gathered together at this moment.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch
Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim v'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Lema'an hakim otecha hayom lo le'am vehu yihye lecha le'elohim ka'asher diber lach ve'ka'asher nishba la'avotecha la'avraham le'yitzchak u'l'yaakov ve'lo itechem levadchem anochi Koret et habrit hazot ve'et ha'ala hazot ki et asher yeshno po imanu omed hayom lifnei Adonai Eloheinu ve'et asher einenu po imanu hayom.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torat emet v'chayei olam nata betochenu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Thank you so much, Yasher Koach. And Brandon's also a graduate of our schools, and he's one of our B'nai Mitzvah mentors. He works with some of our young students, helping prepare them for their B'nai Mitzvah. Thank you, Brandon. For the honor of our third Aliyah, joining us online, Andrea and Barry Caton, and joining us here in person, Beth and Brian Bihar. And Beth is our admissions director at our school. So if you're looking for a great Jewish day school, you can see her after services. Thank you for being part of our community. And Jack is here as well, another graduate of our school. Come on up. And our third reader today is Rowan Tyberg, another graduate of our schools. Please come forward, Rowan. So what we just heard is this powerful, powerful line that Brandon chanted for us, that all of those who are gathered with us are here with us, and even those who aren't here with us are here with us. And we could understand that in such expansive ways. It might mean that the future generations who haven't been born yet, somehow they're still here. Or it could mean that the previous generations who have left this world, they're still here. But it could, and I'll connect this to my sermon, it could mean that even those who don't see themselves as part of the people yet, they're still part of our people. They're still part of our family. And we'll keep embracing them as tightly as we can.
Baruch hu et Adonai Hamvorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamvarach Le'olam.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim ve'natan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen. Ki hamitzvah hazot asher Anochi mitzavecha hayom lo nifleti mimcha velo rechaka hi lo bashamayim hi lemor mi avar lanu mi yalelanu hashamayma ve'yikachecha lanu ve'yashmienu ota ve'na'asena Velo me'ever le'am hi lemor mi avar lanu el ever hayam ve'yikachecha lanu ve'yashmienu ota ve'na'asena.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet V'chayei olam nata betochenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Rowan, for chanting. And Rowan's words really are meant to give us chizuk, to give us strength, and also tikva, hope, because Moses says to the Jewish people, you got this. You can do this. This task that I'm assigning you, it's not impossible. It can be done. And I always find great hope in this on Yom Kippur because it's reminding us that the task of teshuvah, hard as it is, we can do this. If we do the work, if we say we're sorry, if we spend the time actually looking honestly at who we are, both in the mirror and on a deeper spiritual and emotional level, well, we can make those changes and we can be better people in the year to come. One of the things we wish for most deeply at this moment as we think about loved ones who we wish could be here with us, in this sanctuary with us perhaps, or if you're joining from home, loved ones who might be far away, who are struggling with illness. We think, of course, about the extraordinary situation we find ourselves in globally, and we know that many, many continue to suffer and to die as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. For all those in need of healing, and healing of the body, healing of the spirit, healing of the soul, we ask God for refuah shalema, for a complete healing now and always.
Mi sheberach avoteinu Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. Mi sheberach imotenu, Sarah, Rivka, Leah, veRachel. May the one who blessed our mothers, may the one who blessed our fathers, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well. of your hope. May our hearts be filled with understanding and strengthened by the power of your love. Bless us with the vision for tomorrow. Help us to reach out to those in pain. May the warmth of friendship ease our sorrow. Give us courage, give us faith, show us the way. Mi sheberach avoteinu, mi sheberach imotenu. Hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, hear our prayer, and bless us as well.
Thank you, Cantor. On page 287, I'll invite you to rise as you're able for Hagban Galila as we lift and dress the Torah.
וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה.
You can all be seated. We'll offer a prayer for the United States and a prayer for Medinat Yisrael. To honor us with our prayer for the U.S., joining us online are Susan and Michael Shore, and joining us here in the congregation are Lori Glickman and James Liwang. And you can find this prayer on page 293. I'll invite you to read responsively.
Our God, God of our fathers and mothers, we are grateful for our country, the United States of America.
May it always be a haven for the oppressed, its neighborhoods and byways peaceful and secure.
May the officers of our government be blessed with wisdom and good counsel. May they act in unison to promote the welfare of all, and may petty rivalry be banished from their deliberations.
May agriculture and commerce be prosperous. May schools and places of learning flourish so that future generations gain the knowledge of freedom and learn the responsibilities of citizenship.
Guard our land from calamity and injury. Plant among the peoples of different nationalities and faiths who dwell here love and understanding, peace and friendship. Spread the shelter of your peace over those who serve our country here and abroad.
May it be your will that our land be a force for good for all who live on earth, and that all peoples know its blessings, so the vision of your prophet may be fulfilled. Let justice roll down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream.
And let us say,
Amen.
Thank you so much. For the honor of leading us in the prayer for Medinat Yisrael, which you can find on page 294. Joining us online are Hilda and Dan Berger, and joining us here in our sanctuary are Bahar and Greg Rinsler.
Avinu shebashamayim, Tzur Yisrael v'govolo,
Shebashamaim, rock and redeemer of the people of Israel. Bless the state of Israel with its promise of redemption. Shield it with your peace. Guide its leaders with your light and your truth. Strengthen the hands of those who defend our holy land. Deliver them and crown their efforts with triumph. Bless the land with peace and its inhabitants with lasting joy. And let us say, Amen.
Thank you so much to everybody who honored us by helping with our Torah service and with our prayers for the United States and for Israel. Our service for returning the Torah to the Ark can be found on page 295. And for the honor of opening our Ark, Karen and Ariel Goldenstein are here with us in the sanctuary, and joining us online are Donna and Donald Gindi. Please rise. Behold, a good doctrine has been given. It is a tree of life to those who hold it fast, and all who cling to it find happiness. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Please be seated. Once again, we're grateful to you all for joining us here in our sanctuary. We're grateful to you who are joining us online, at home, wherever you might be. We're glad that you're part of our community, and we invite you to continue to engage and participate in the life of this congregation and in the life of the Jewish people. I want to express my gratitude to Cantor Emma and to our entire clergy team, David Cates and our amazing choir. We're so grateful to you for inspiring us and lifting us up, to our rabbis for your teaching and your leadership, to our staff, everybody on your way out, please make sure, thank a staff member. Normally I say hug a staff member, but let's not do that now, not the right time for that. But you can thank them, maybe a little elbow, a little fist bump, whatever you're comfortable with, but tell them how grateful you are for their hard work, because boy, have they been working hard over these last many months as our plans continue to change and evolve. If you took one of those grocery sacks home on Rosh Hashanah and you're coming back for Yizkor and Ne'ilah, please make sure to bring them with you, all filled up. If you forgot, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up like Rabbi Josh suggested. Instead, tomorrow, just drop all of those canned goods off at Sova or at your local food pantry. Again, thank you, everybody, for being here with us. We are going to conclude with Shema Kolenu. It can be found on page 269. Chatima Tova, may our fast, our prayer, and the work of teshuvah cause us to be sealed for good in the book of life.